Welcome to Dispatches, a production of the VVA Veteran Magazine and Vietnam Veterans of America, hosted by arts editor Marc Leepson. Each episode is a one-on-one interview with a writer, novelist, actor, director, or other artist whose work is influenced by the Vietnam War. In addition to appearing on the VVA Veterans Facebook page, archived episodes can be found on the magazine's webpage and on VVA's website. And now, let's begin.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 45 of Dispatches, a production of the VVA Veteran Magazine, coming to you live and on tape, as always, from Vietnam Veterans of America's national headquarters, right here in downtown Silver Spring, Maryland. Our special guest today is the novelist, journalist, and Vietnam War veteran Philip Caputo. Phil joined the U.S. Marine Corps after finishing college in 1964 and served a 16-month tour of duty in the Vietnam War. And not long after his discharge in 1968, he went to work as a general assignment reporter and later a foreign correspondent for the Chicago Tribune, winning a Pulitzer Prize for his investigative reporting on election fraud in 1973. Among other foreign assignments, he covered the end of the Vietnam War in April 1975. His first book, A Rumor of War, a brilliant Vietnam War memoir that came out in 1977, has become part of the American Vietnam War literary canon. The book has been published in 15 languages, sold over 1.5 million copies, and is still in print today, nearly 50 years after its publication. Phil has written 17 other books, including 2 memoirs, 5 books of general nonfiction, and 10 novels. My review of his new book, Wandering Souls, a terrific collection of short stories, will appear in the books column in the March-April issue of the magazine, and we'll be talking about the book a good deal today. In addition to the Pulitzer, Phil's other honors include the Vietnam Veterans of America's Excellence in the Arts Award, which was the first time we gave out those awards. Phil, great to see you again. Congratulations on the book, and welcome to Dispatches.
Oh, thanks. It's great to be here, Mark.
Yeah, let's just jump right in. The book was terrific, and I really enjoyed every single story in there. We're going to talk a little bit about the stories in general and the 2 Vietnam War ones. But before we do that, let's just go way back into the 1900s. And could you tell us why, as a young man, you joined the Marine Corps in 1964?
Well, I think at that time, the hangover from World War II still existed across the country. I had uncles, my friends had fathers and uncles who were in World War II. The draft was on, so you knew you were going to, if you were healthy and mentally fit, you were going to end up being drafted anyway. So I thought I'd at least preserve my sense of choice and about which branch I went into, and for all of those reasons, I enlisted. It was a very natural. I don't know if that's the right word for it exactly, but yeah, it was a very natural thing to do then.
Yeah, it was a different time then. The war wasn't going
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah. And then just for those who don't know, give us a little bit about your tour of duty, which of course is all in A Rumor of War. You served 16 months. Is that correct? In the country? Yeah.
Yeah, altogether, I think it's actually might be 15. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, just give us the high concept. Just give us some highlights or of the tour of duty for people who don't know.
Well, first of all, when I joined, the United States was not directly involved in the Vietnam War. And my first duty assignment after officers basic school was Camp Schwab on Okinawa, where we were just undergoing normal training. And I got there, I think it was in January of 1965. And then 2 months later, all of a sudden, we got the signal to mount out for Vietnam. And in fact, we we helped start the war for the United States, although the war itself had been going on for a long, long time before that. Um, and I was assigned as a platoon leader for with the 1st Battalion, 3rd Marines, and I was with them till I believe it was June or maybe July of '65, and then I was transferred to headquarters, 3rd Marines, on a staff position, which I might add I hated. And let's see, I was there till November. Yeah, I believe it was November of '65, and then I got transferred to Charlie Company of 1st Battalion, 1st Marines, which was under the operational control of the 3rd Marines, and then I stayed with them.
Yeah. So you stormed the beach on Da Nang. Was that
Yeah,
correct? Yeah.
yeah. If you want to call it that, we
Yeah.
actually were flown in on C-130s,
Oh,
so we
yeah.
stormed the airfield.
Right. March 65, right? That was
Yeah,
the time when
March 8th.
yeah, when we sent in the Marines. So let's jump to 1968 after you got out and you went to work at the Chicago Tribune. What was your thinking at that point? Did you think that journalism was going to be your career? Or did you have other ideas, or tell us about that?
Well, I pretty much had settled on journalism. Yeah, um, I had had a job before that with the 3M company with their advertising and sales promotion department, and I loathed that job. And the one part of that job I liked was putting out the company house organ, the company newspaper. And I had thought to myself, I said, well, if you like this, you'd really love working for a real newspaper. And so I sent resumes out all over the place, um, figuring that I'd have to start, with a small paper somewhere. And I'll be damned if my timing was not due to any, by the way, any foresight on my part, but my timing was good because the Tribune was hiring new people then. They had their old timers were retiring. So I got hired by the Tribune, although I didn't work for the main sheet, the main newspaper itself. I worked for a small paper that was owned by them for a couple of years. And then I went to the city room of the Tribune from there.
And how long did you stay at the Tribune?
Almost 10 years.
Uh-huh. So you wrote A Rumor of War while you were a reporter?
Well, the way that worked is that I had been working on it for years, and whenever I had a spare moment, and I had few spare moments, I might add, especially with a job like that. Um, and I had finally gotten, I don't know, I think a prologue and maybe 3 chapters or something like that written in a finished form. And I spoke to Bob Cromie, who was then the book editor of the Chicago Tribune, and I said, can you help me get an agent for this? I says, I think I've got something going here. And he put me in touch with an agent named Aaron Priest, who was then roughly my age, maybe slightly older, but a young guy getting started. And I'll be damned if after about 6 weeks or 2 months of shopping that thing around, a few publishers like Doubleday and all that rejected it. But Holt, then called Holt Reinhardt and Winston, now called Henry Holt, decided to buy it, much to my happiness and I might add shock. And so I wanted to take a leave of absence to finish it. and I was then assigned as the Moscow correspondent for the Tribune, which is by the way, back and then in the middle of the Cold War, that was a big, big assignment. And the foreign editor said, "No, we we're not going to let you go from Moscow." And so I resigned. I quit and to finish the book.
So you turned down the job in Moscow to write the book, to finish the
Well,
book.
no, I was actually in Moscow
Oh, you
at the
were.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had been there. Well, it escapes me now how long. At least a year, I think, something like that.
Just one more question about Rumor of War, and then we'll talk about Wandering Souls. I mean, did you have any idea about the reception that it would get? Did you have any idea it would be in print 50 years later? Did you have any?
No,
Yeah.
no. I mean, I wrote it in a way, I was conscious of trying to write it in a way that it would last, that it would be, that it would, I don't know, have a life beyond what it was describing and the time that it was describing it in. Well, that was my thought then, but I didn't think it would be it was actually when it came out, it was something of a sensation. I have to say, that surprised the hell out of me because the Vietnam War was an anathema subject at that time for just about anybody.
Yeah, that was like the big silence, right? In the mid to late
Yeah, yeah.
70s and early 80s. Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, can you feel? I mean, it's sort of amazing that you say that you hope that it would last forever or for a long time. I mean,
Mhm.
what elements of the story? I mean, this was your memoir. This is what happened to you. What elements of that story in A Rumor of War do you think captured something that people are interested in today, 2026?
Well, as I said, I was conscious. It was uppermost in my mind anyway of writing it in a way that would outlast its time, and I just tried to write about the emotional and psychological truths of what it's like to be in combat. Um, and and I think I succeeded at that. And that's what attracts people. It's not that I had any great insight into uh, foreign policy at that time,
Right. Yeah.
or Vietnamese culture for that matter. It was just that I wrote very candidly and I think accurately about what the emotional and psychological and even moral impact of combat is on a person who's fighting.
Yeah. Um, Okay, well, and I just want to, one other question before we get to Wandering Souls. I think I said that before, but another thing popped into my brain. So, there are a lot of people who are great fiction writers. There are a lot of people who are great nonfiction writers, but there are very few, I think, who can do both because they're so different. That's what my theory is. I mean, I've written 11 books of nonfiction. I don't think I could, even begin to write something fiction because my excuse is that they're almost opposite of what you want to do, right? In nonfiction, you tell,
Mhm.
tell, tell, tell. And in fiction, you're making a story up and you show and evoke. So how do you do it? I mean, you've written fiction and nonfiction, and tell me what your thoughts are about that.
Well, I think one thing was the early training in journalism. Obviously, it helped me a lot with nonfiction, um, and even I don't know, in a kind of negative sense, it helped me write fiction because a lot of times I had thoughts or perceptions and all that I couldn't verify, you might say, in the way you would for a newspaper or magazine story. Um, Certain stories would float through my head, and fiction was the only way to get those down, and so I did. I found the transition not that difficult. I still do. I still find that it's a fairly easy transition for me to make. Um, the I guess the big difference is that I found nonfiction to be a hell of a lot easier than fiction,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
because your material is right there,
Right.
and you're both limited and inspired by that. But
Right.
with fiction, it can be almost anything.
Right. You got a beginning, a middle, and an end. And in
Yeah.
fiction,
Mhm.
when do you end? When do you stop? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk about Wandering Souls. I think I told you I really liked it. Every one of the stories, in their own way, were great. And the let me just ask you a little nuts and bolts stuff. So, did you write all the? Are these new, or had you had some in drawer, or how'd that come about?
Uh, no, they're fairly new. I mean, I started writing the lead story. I think it was way back in 2018 or 2019. And I set it aside and worked on it a little bit more, and finally got it into a form after, you know, years had passed. Got it into a shape that I was happy with, and I had been working on some other stories at the same time, and so I just decided I'd put them all together into a book. And I realized while doing that the connective tissue of these stories was that they all take place in exotic places or exotic situations. And that exotic isn't the
Yeah, I was
best
going to
word to
say,
use,
yeah.
but strange places and strange situations.
Yeah, I was actually that was going to be my next question about what if there's a theme that runs through, and I think I detected maybe one at least, and that was aside from all being in a country where how about weird stuff was happening,
Mhm.
that we're dealing with the impact of the past on people's lives. Is that a reach, or was that in your mind, or tell me about that?
Well, I don't know if that was really, no, I wasn't conscious of that.
Okay.
If if that's how it comes out, I mean, fine. I mean, people can read what they want
Right,
into a fiction writer's work, and he or she may not even be aware of the theme that the reader picks up on,
right,
and
right.
but nevertheless, it's there.
Yeah. I remember I was always like skeptical of my English teachers in high school. But they were telling me what was in Mark Twain's mind and,
Oh
that kind
yeah.
Um, okay, so two of the stories deal the title story, Wandering Souls, and then Coils of the Past, both deal with the Vietnam War, with the
Yeah.
Vietnam War veteran. Tell us about
Mm.
that a little bit. I remember, I don't know if you remember when we had the VVA National Convention in Washington, and you and uh, Tim O'Brien, Larry Heineman, Bob Butler, and
Mm.
Oliver Stone, and others got the first literary awards we gave out.
Mm.
We did a
Yeah.
panel. Do you remember that? We did a panel, Tim,
Yeah.
Larry,
Yeah.
yeah. And that question about, how much of an impact has serving in the Vietnam War had to do with your creative work. And so there are two big stories in here on the Vietnam War.
Mm.
Is that, I mean, still in your brain? Is that something you still affects your literary work?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, that was the being in the war was the most, to this day, was the most significant thing that had happened to me. It changed my life, changed my personality. It was, I've often compared it to like dying and being reborn again. And so it always comes up in some way through my work.
Yeah. I mean, I call it the ultimate rite of passage. I mean,
Yeah,
not you're growing up. I mean, I was 22 when I went over. I was among the older guys. But, when I came back a year later, I was a different person as well.
yeah.
All of us, I think all of us were. Yeah.
Oh, all of us were. I mean, it was like when you come back, it's that you feel as if you'd lived 25 years in a year.
Yeah. Yeah. And to have a rite of passage in a shooting war adds another dimension to it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah. Well, now I'm going to ask you the question that you get asked all the time, and that's what's next? Do you have another book planned, or how are you doing on that?
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I'm 84 years old now, and I am working on a novel. Um, doesn't have anything to do with war or Vietnam, but the theme of it derives out of those experiences. Um, it's called The Confidential Informant. It's something of a spy novel, but not what you think of when if you might think of John le Carre. I wish actually I could write a
Yeah,
spy novel like he did, uh, but it could well be the last book I ever write. I don't know.
yeah,
I can't imagine myself, even if I'm still alive 5 years from now, going through this process of writing.
yeah. Well, don't quit. I mean, you're doing good work. I don't know if
Okay,
you
well,
know.
thank you very much.
Absolutely. I
That's
just last,
encouraging to hear
yeah,
that.
no, 100%. I mean, there's this short story writer named John Gardner, Gardiner, John Rolfe Gardner.
Oh, yeah.
He has a new book out. He's 88. He's
Oh
88.
my God.
The stories are
I didn't
brilliant.
know he was.
Yeah, yeah. The stories are brilliant, and they're all new, or within
Hmm.
the last
Oh,
couple 3 years. So I offer that up to you as incentive.
okay. Well, thank you.
Well, Phil, this is great. I'm glad to see you again, and congratulations on the book, and good luck on the next one.
Okay. Well, thanks very much, Mark. It was a
Absolutely.
real pleasure.
All right, take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, everyone. And thanks to the dispatches team here at Vietnam Veterans of America's National Headquarters. Quentin Butcher, Alfie Williams, the indispensable Daniel Devora, Sean Venables, and myself. Dispatches was created by Michael Keating. And stay tuned soon for the next episode of Dispatches, a production of the VVA Veteran magazine. I remember, I don't know if you remember Michael Keating, who was the editor of the Veteran. You wrote a couple of articles for us a bunch of years ago.
Mm,
So, Mike,
yeah.
I mentioned to Mike that you had a new book out and that there were two stories about the Vietnam War, a Vietnam War veteran. And uh, he said, the last thing I remember Phil telling me was that he was through with writing about the Vietnam War. So
Yeah.
I
Well,
thought
I
I thought that was a
I
chuckle.
was mistaken about that.
Yeah.